travel or do anything. So it was pretty chill.
Did you get a crazy like freeze over in Texas? I heard there's kind of like a wild
Yeah, it's over now, but yeah, it was crazy. It was like frozen pipes. Like, I'm from California. I don't deal with frozen things. And yeah,
yeah.
this was nuts.
Yeah, it's been I mean, we don't have anything too crazy in terms of cold weather, but we've had like an onslaught of rain here for like the last 2 weeks or so. And everyone says, oh, it's much needed, which it is, but I'm like, I'm so ready for the sun to come out. Although 38 days from now, the sun will set at 7:02 p.m. So just keep that in mind. Things are up and up, you know. We've crossed the chasm. Days are getting longer. Cool. So we'll just dive into the KPIs for this call. We won't wait for anyone else, although some other folks might trickle in. Mike, you look like you're eating right now. So Chris, I'm gonna go with you. Tell me you got your numbers for December, yeah?
They're all up here.
All right. Oh no. The Bull Brothers, man. You guys are just killing me. Have you guys gone through the new KPI templates I added to the program?
I just looked at them the other day, actually.
So yeah, definitely recommend using them. In particular, the acquisition KPI template, going to be beneficial. I know both of you guys are growing, scaling, pushing your marketing. Mike's adding texting. Chris, are you going to add texting this year, you think?
Yeah, for sure.
So you're going to add texting. You're going to want to start tracking all the ins and outs for all the different marketing channels. And once you add an acquisition manager on your team, which you will need to do at some point in the next 3 to 12 months, I'd say.
It's posted.
It'll be really helpful to kind of track their results. And really I'll go through my numbers this month. Really what you can get down to is cost per contract, cost per closed deal, and start to kind of reverse engineer what really goes in to make a deal happen. And I think you'll start to suss out, and I know neither of you guys are doing small deals, but you'll start to figure out, hey, on every deal I do, there's $1,200 of cost there. I'm not going to go and do deals that net me less than 15 grand or whatever it is, right? You want to make sure it's worth your while. So super insightful. And again, once you start branching out and adding new channels, you're testing them against each other. And you can see like, oh, direct mail is cheaper than X, Y, and Z or vice versa. So Chris, take it away. Let's talk about numbers for December, and then we'll go into January goals.
Yeah, for sure. So numbers for December, I actually didn't send out. So I did send out mail like 4 or 5 days ago, but essentially for January.
Yep.
So I'm not counting that towards December. I didn't send any mail out December. Things that were hitting great, but I didn't send out any new mail. I was just getting my mailers ready for this upcoming month. So mail was nothing. I did sell 3 properties. Spreads weren't great, but net, who knows, it's just shy of 30. So, whatever, by month.
Okay.
Yep. And then acquisition, only 1, because again, no mail went out, but that was should be the best deal spread wise.
I was talking to Mike about that. Do you want to give a little context for Dominic and anyone else watching later?
Yeah, absolutely. So that one is a property in Texas. It's a 20-acre lot, and we're buying it all in after all fees are 35. And on the conservative side, it's going to be, we're going to list it at 100. Yeah, so and it should go pretty quick. We're hiring an agent for this one. Michael and I are splitting it. Hired an agent for this one, and the agent actually just sent over the listing agreement, which I took care of 2 days ago. And the listing agreement's only for 60 days. So he's confident that it's going to go like immediately. So he's kind of suggested 100 to 120,000 range. We're going on the low end, hopefully draw up some interest. If we get multiple offers, great. But if not, quick flip.
Quick question for you guys. Does this have road frontage?
Yep.
Yeah.
Why not chop it up into 2 10s?
It's a subdivision of. Sorry, I think it's. He said
it's in the
20,
subdivision.
It's 10. It's a subdivision of all 10s. I think.
It's 20.
Oh, is it 20? But the whole subdivision is 20. So I don't know.
The whole subdivision is 20. Yeah.
Got it. Is it in like a POA or an HOA?
There is not a POA or an HOA.
I would look into that. I mean, it's not a huge subdivision, so you're not going to add a ton on a price per acre basis, but that could add an extra 25, 30 grand to it. In Texas too, just to kind of give a little context here, across the board for the state, the only times it's going to deviate is if you're in city limits. there's exemptions for subdivisions. So if you're breaking up properties into 10-acre increments and above, there's pretty much no red tape you got to go through, just a survey. And then you record the plat with the county. Could take like 15 to 30 days. It's super quick. Otherwise, subdivisions slow, lots of red tape, still very profitable. But if you've got anything over 20 acres, it would make sense. I'm going to touch on an interesting subdivide deal that we're working on currently that is kind of in the same vein. But, look at it too, right?
Yeah, I'll pick his brain for sure, because I already had a photographer go out. It's all done. They were pretty shitty because it was a day where it was like clouds, and he actually wanted to go out, take new photos and go walk the lot himself, or actually drive his ATV around the lot. So after he takes a look, I think should be in the next couple of days. I'll take it. I'll pick his brain about that. That's a good point. Yeah. If I can add some value.
Pick his brain, and I mean, even just after this call, go pop on Redfin, Zillow, whatever you guys want to look at, and just see if there is a disparity. Some market, there always is going to be some disparity when we break things into smaller increments on a per acre basis, but some markets it's way bigger than others. And so if it's marginal, it might not be worth it. But maybe it's worth 15 grand an acre at that. Well, that'd be crazy if it was. I don't know. What's it worth at 5,000 an acre?
I think it's 10. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. I thought it was a 10 acres.
So you guys are buying it at like 1,500 an acre. It's worth 5,000 an acre. Yeah, maybe it's worth 7,500 an acre at that point. But that's a good deal. So one acquisition that came in December.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Sold 3 deals, right?
Yep.
30 grand in net profit. Let's talk about, we could do a year-end review too on a different call. We won't make you go through that here, but I think that would be interesting for everyone to go over. Let's talk about January goals.
Yeah, for sure. So January goals, so it kind of like goes into my yearly goals for this year, kind of what I did last year, took a look at it, how much mail I sent, the cost, what that meant per deal, like every 1,000 pieces of mail, what did that net me, and kind of worked backwards. So, reversed it.
Yeah.
Reverse engineered it. And so I was not at 10,000 pieces of mail last year, not even close. I was actually at 57,000 in total last year.
Wow.
Yeah. And still, managed to do pretty
still
solid.
Still had a great year. Are you, just a quick question, and it just is insane how consistently I see this within our students' businesses. Are you roughly at 2,000 letters per deal? Do you know where you're at when you fall in that range?
Oh, actually, so I am at 70. I look at it every 1,000 pieces of mail. I had 7,700 in net.
So that's an interesting metric. I've never looked at it like that. Let's just do this real quick. So you said 58,000 pieces of mail. How many deals did you acquire?
Bought and sold. It's right here. Pull it up in this app. I want to say, well, let me just not guess. Pull it up.
Yeah. Just on the acquisition side.
Oh, okay. So just on the acquisition side, that was 39.
Oh, you're way better. So you're at 1487, call it 1,500 letters per deal. And so what I always tell folks is, 2,000 is honestly conservative. Like in our business, we're closer to 1,100, but we're real sniper targeted in how we do things. And we blend in texting with that. But 2,000 letters per deal is so conservative and so accurate. What's your gross profit per deal on average? Rough. If you have that number, great, but roughly, do you know?
Gross profit. Well, we did in gross profit, we did 400 this year. So
cool. So you're okay. So that makes sense, right? So you're about 10K, a little over 10K gross profit per deal. So what we see for a lot of folks in the program is about 15K gross profit. You're going to need a little more mail to get those kinds of deals, call it 2,000 letters or so. But you have a higher yield from your mailers, but you're taking some deals that are a little bit smaller. That's kind of how our business is, right? Like we're at, I think, 1,100 or 1,200 mailers per deal that we do. And we're like just a hair under $13,000 per deal. Although that's going to go up substantially this year. We just had a ton of smaller deals in our portfolio that we sold.
Yeah, for sure.
That average down. Dude, that's awesome. That's super interesting. And this is the cool thing, like whether you're just following the math that we teach in the program, or once you start getting real data points in your business from doing deals, you're literally just reverse engineering the outcome that you want. All right, I want to make $3 million. Well, the math of what's going to get there. The only cost that's going to scale with that is operations, aka running, like having a team. But data won't change, mail won't change, like all those constant software that won't change. This is why this is so cool. It's so binary.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Michael and I were just talking about this actually, how similar our numbers are for like, net per 1,000 mailers. All the numbers are like really, really close. And so it's clearly linear, if you want to. And so my goal, again, we're not really good. Anyway, it's like 50K. It's net 50K a month for this year. So 600.
Yep.
And that's going to require at least 10,000 pieces of mail every month. So that is like a hard and fast thing. I'm sending it out. I posted a job application on onlinejobs.ph for an acquisition manager. No hits. It's been on for a couple of days. We'll see.
What?
Yeah.
No hits?
I think this guy's making him jump through the hoops to join his team.
Yeah, I'm like, geez, Louise. Send me the job listing if you want to just send it to me in Discord. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, for sure. I will.
Something's wrong. I mean, the holiday might influence it slightly.
So that's what I was going to give it. It's been up for 2 days. So I posted it like New Year's Eve. So it's been like through New Year's, but I don't know.
Getting hits. You should start getting hits. Yeah, send it over to me. I'll take a look. What are you offering in terms of a pay range?
$6 to $8 an hour full time.
That's a problem. Yeah, that's too low for that role.
How much you say? 6 to 8?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you want to. I think flexing a range is important because you're going to.
Rylan just hired someone at 68. He had like 6 applicants the first day.
Yeah, but dude, that's a cold texter. Way different than acquisition manager. You don't want an acquisition manager at $6 an hour. But first off, but here's the thing: is that like flex a range, but flex the higher number. You know how on onlinejobs.ph you can put in like the anticipated salary based off of the higher number. That will get you more applicants. But what we've seen for ours is 10 to 12 an hour, and that's still really low. I mean, like you could go up to 20 or so. That's overseas. Here in the U.S., you're probably like a $40,000 to $50,000 base salary. And then obviously the quarterly comp plan is what I would encourage using. But the thing is that like, yeah, you might be able to find a diamond in a rough, but it's just not worth. It's unlikely. It's very, very unlikely. You want someone that's got a decade plus of BPO experience. It's a killer on the phones. They're not going to come in with land experience or real estate experience. You're going to have to train them on that. But you want someone who's good on the phones. And those people that are good on the phones, they've been doing this for a decade plus, working in the Philippines, but working overseas in the US. And so like they usually know what they're worth. And it's such a high value role that you can get away with it. Even at $12 an hour, you've got a hard cost for salary at $19.20 a month. That's not much. And what we've seen is a good acquisition manager fully maxed out with their salary and their full comp plan is about $40,000 a year, like a 20x return for growth, which is over $1 million. So I would play around with that. I mean, you could split test it, see what you get, but I'm gonna venture to guess you're gonna get a lot of interesting interviews.
I thought I would start it on the low end first.
What you could do though, this would be my encouragement to you. Would go, okay, go $6 to $12 an hour, flex the $12 an hour salary, but put the range in the description. You're gonna get way more applicants because there's just a higher number that's tagged on there.
That's a good idea. I was going to use the same application for Fiverr and Upwork as well. Kind of see what comes out of what.
Dude, man, I'm curious to see what you get on Fiverr. Good luck. Fiverr is, I mean, when we talk about going and outsourcing overseas, you are working the bottom of the barrel. It's a lot of like minutia. Like I will go and scrape data for you or something like that. We'll see. It'll be a curious case study. Okay. So bring an acquisition manager on, $50K a month net profit, which I would honestly wouldn't be surprised if you exceed that. What else?
Yeah, and then I'm exploring other debt options. So I just actually paid for Fund and Grow. So
yep.
I'm gonna.
I was talking to Mike about that. I'm gonna sign up as well.
Yeah.
And I think what we'll do once we go through that process, I'm going to host a call and do kind of a deep dive on that for the other members. Super cool option. And just to give a rundown, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but roughly you pay a one-time flat fee, which is $4,000. They'll go and aggregate and get you a bunch of credit cards, business credit cards under your business. So you need an EIN, you need an LLC. You'll get, 400,000, I think is the max, right?
They say they use 250,000 as their kind of selling point, but I don't know if that's upper limit or what that is, if that's average.
250,000, which I know you can get more than that in business credit. I don't know if they have a cap on it. 0% interest. You just pay the processing fee, which is 3% for every transaction, and they'll just wire that money into escrow for you. So it's a quick way. If you don't want to JV on deals, you don't want to use parcel funders from the course, or you exhaust other options, you can tap into a couple $100,000 that you can recycle. It's just a line of credit. So you're not paying interest on it like you would a promissory note if you're not using it. Definitely something we're going to be adding to the mix. That's super, super cool. And it's attainable for just about everyone. You just need an LLC that's somewhat seasoned. Like if you open up an LLC,
that's it.
Huh?
3 months, that's it.
3 months, right? And so yeah, you're off to the races. That's a really cool strategy. And I had heard about it in the past. I just never put 2 and 2 together.
They pull your personal credit, and it's only one credit pull, and then all the cards actually sit under your EIN, like you said, so it doesn't affect your personal credit at all. You can have as much line of credit as you want, and so it seems like the cheapest debt option that I could possibly find. And the whole goal for this year is to keep as much cash on hand as possible, because if things do take a huge shit in the whole world, I would love to pick up some, multifamily and other real estate.
Yeah. You and I both.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. I'm going to start the application tonight. And I think like you and Mike did with splitting the fee.
So that's another huge thing. And if you go in with someone, if you just like name drop anyone that has done it, they'll take off some money, but you can sign up with 2 applicants and they'll split the cost between the 2, which is awesome.
Sweet. Cool. Yeah, we'll do, it'll probably take a couple weeks to process, but we'll do probably a call in February going over that. And I think that's a really cool strategy for just about anyone in the program. The cool thing about business credit too, doesn't affect your personal credit. It's like worst case scenario, the sky falls, your personal credit's still going to be okay, which is really interesting.
And the last thing I'll say about that, which you'll find out talking to them, which I thought was really interesting, it's 60 days to get your money back. So they pretty much, you fill out the whole stuff, they run your credit, and they kind of to see what the realistic amount is for the first round of funding that you'll be able to receive. And then you give them a thumbs up before they pull the trigger. So you can say, yes, I want this, or actually we're going to wait. If your credit isn't great, they'll repair it. They have different ways to like go through a process, or you can be like, it's not for me right now. My business is going a different direction, and get your money back.
So it's
no questions asked.
It's such a cool opportunity. And once you've been in this business for a year, let's just say year, 12 months, right? You've been using JV partners, you've been using parcel funders in the program. You've got a proof of concept. One of the easiest levers you can pull to add more money to your business is cheaper capital. And so few people like go that route. But JVing is awesome because you don't need a resume. Your first deal you could go get funding on, but it's expensive. You're giving up 30-40% of that deal. So like our first year using JV partners, we paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars that if we just got cheaper capital, that money's ours. And so it's just a really cool strategy for folks.
Without changing anything in the business, just using cheaper money. I didn't use much other people's capital, but it still would have like saved me net like $50K.
Yeah, it's great.
Without literally changing nothing except cheaper money.
We've got like a blend of different funding strategies in our business, but I think still this year we probably paid out like $250,000 that we wouldn't have had to otherwise, which is crazy when you think about it. What about outside of like tangible results in your business? Any lifestyle things that you're looking to achieve? Anything that you want the business to do? For I already know you're semi-retired, but like anything along those lines?
This is gonna sound ridiculous, and maybe who knows?
You want to work less?
No. I love my life the way it is. But yeah, for sure. If that's an option, I'm working less. That's why I'm like, no. I don't want to change anything. I love it the way it is. I think it's great. There's nothing in my personal life that I would change. Yeah, I'm the same way. I've been telling everyone it's like new year, same me. I'm really not trying to change much. I'm trying to do more of the same. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Mike, what about you? You ready? You got your numbers?
Oh, I got my numbers. All right. All right. A mail sent 0. But I told myself I was going to send 0 in December. So I purposely didn't send any.
Did you prep any for the start of January?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this month we'll send out 10,000, but January 0. We only sold 2 deals actually. Pretty low. I'm actually surprised we sold the 2 just being being December. That was for 21,000 net profit. We sent 7 into escrow to buy.
Okay.
And closed on 3. So actually, so I apologize. It was actually 10 total we sent into escrow. 7 are still there. 3 we closed on. Yeah. So between those deals, I know you like the potential profit number, Sumner. Between out of those 7 plus the 3 we closed on, 150,000 actually, 160,000 is what the potential profit is on those.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it for my December number.
Goals for January?
Goals for January. It's funny. I was calling Chris for the other day going over our goals for January, and we were saying the same goals, but just like worded differently, because I just wanted to run like a high 7-figure business. I want to run a 7-figure business, which is $600,000 a year net, which is $50,000 a month. So the same thing his was. But yeah, I want a 7-figure business is my goal. So whether it's $50,000 a month is probably what it'll pencil out to be.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah. 10,000 mailers a month minimum is my goal for mail. I don't have a goal as far as like how many deals I want to buy or something like that.
I think it's a relevant goal.
It's irrelevant. Yeah, 120,000 mailers for the year, 7 figures in the business. I'd like to bring on maybe 2 more people on the team. That would be cool.
Who would those roles be, or what would the roles be?
Probably one being an acquisitions manager.
Ding, ding. There we go.
And don't price that at $68 an hour.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew.
Yeah, probably one being an acquisition manager, and then somebody on the phones. I'd probably be over it by that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're adding texting to your business this month, is that right?
Adding texting to the business. Yeah, we hired somebody today. She's managing the texting. And then it also kind of like transformed like our quote unquote transactions coordinator, I guess you call her, kind of transformed her role a little bit to a little bit more of like a managerial role, I guess, as kind of everything funnels through her. But yes, we're adding texting to the business. So I don't really have a goal for texting necessarily, other than, kind of reuse all the old data, max out the texting as much as we can. So
okay, you're doing 600 texts a day.
600 texts a day, 10,000 a month is the limit. I think I would just like to use all of it.
You're not going to have someone work on the weekends, though, are you?
No, she's just part-time Monday through Friday.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
cool. Anything else to add on to that?
I don't think so. Lifestyle, I like my life quite a bit.
That's the best answer you could have.
Yeah, I'd really, really like to buy a business this year. Actually, I think that would be pretty fun. So, yeah, I think buying a business would be pretty cool. Sweet.
Yeah, recycle some of the profits from the land business.
Yeah,
I like that idea as well. So I'll go through my numbers, go through my goals, and then Dominique, we'll have you go through. If you've sent an email, we can go over that, but we'll go over your January goals. So start noodling on those, and we'll go over that together. Life is funny, right? Like everything is relative. And so I'm going through my numbers, I'm looking at them now, and I'm like, oh, it's actually, I'm grateful, right? It's not bad, but in comparison to where we were, everything feels like a huge loss, right? And we've all seen a little bit of a slowdown this quarter, I would say, even though Mike had a $80,000 profit month last month. We were doing in like September, like 150 to 175K profit, kind of in that range for the last few months. And then Q4, things slowed down. But all in all, for the slowest month of the year, we still did pretty good for this month. So in December, we sold 5 properties. Our net for this month was $63,856.37. That's a blend of cash sales and owner finance income. What was cool though is we don't actively try to build our owner finance portfolio, but it still grows pretty substantially. So this month we added $1,948 of new monthly recurring revenue. That's been what we've been adding pretty much every month. Somewhere between $1,500 and $1,900 has been really, really consistent for us. So that's cool. It's about $111,000 of total financing value that we'll capture over the next few years. We purchased 1 property. Nothing too crazy there. We did send mail this month, but it was all backloaded at the end of the month. So really like in the last week or so, we had just a little over 8,000 mailers go out, and we had like I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 go out today. So we'll probably end up hitting 20 or so thousand this month for mailers sent. We had 65 land.com leads, 26 land flip leads, and a handful of MLS leads. A lot of our sales actually came from the MLS this month. I think 3 out of the 5. No defaults in our owner finance portfolio, and we currently have 36 properties in inventory. So yeah, it's funny. Like, I mean, 3 years ago, I would have been jumping up and down for a $63,000 profit month, but relative to where we're at, it still feels like a step backwards. But that's life. It's not always just a consistent rhythm on the upward trend. It's kind of so 1 step back for 2 steps forward. For goals for this month, yeah. So mailing goal, 20,000 mailers. We've made some changes to our texting process, so getting that dialed in. We used to do pre-pricing all of our data, and then our texter would send out offers. Now we're actually having our texter go and do all the comps before sending an offer. What we found is we can be a little more targeted with that. Now it's a bit of a detriment because it does slow down our texting process. It adds some friction to it, which I don't like. When I'm hiring and building out roles, I'm very, very aware of just having them do the one thing that they need to be doing. And I don't like stacking too many things on their plate. But I actually have seen, and I think we'll continue to see, just a better conversion because our offers are a lot more targeted. So instead of using range offers that we were before, he's going to go in the weeds and get a lot of information that's going to help us be more relevant with the offers that we're making. And so I don't know if they're going to fall this month. They very well could, but it'll definitely fall this quarter. We've got like 4 or 5 really promising subdivide deals in the pipeline currently. Really big ones. Like, I think, I don't know, the cumulative potential profit of those deals is probably somewhere between 4 and 5 million, which is pretty insane to think that could come from just a handful of deals. There's 2 that are on the cusp of turning into a full-on project. So there's just one that I've been talking about for the last quarter. Looks like we're getting pretty close to the finish line on that. So I think we're going to get word on it this month, and it looks like it's going to be the green light. It's a buy for $560,000. We got $760,000 of bank financing for the property, so we got a little more than we needed, but that'll go to making some improvements to the land, cutting in roads, pulling utilities, and worth somewhere between 2 to 2.5 million. And then we got a new subdivide lead that actually came in today. It's a 200-acre property. We're somewhere between 4,500 an acre to 5,000 an acre. We're still fleshing that out. So somewhere between 900,000 and $1 million. And it's worth super conservatively 10,000 an acre. But most things are selling between 15 and 20,000 an acre. So I'm underwriting it around 10,000 to 12,000 an acre. So worst case, it's about $1 million profit on that. So yeah, that's really been my focus all of Q4. It's my focus all of Q1. It's my focus for this year. These first few subdivide projects, I'm not even looking at them as a profit center. It's a learning experience. Every time I'm adding a new component to my business, everything is a pilot test. And I'm just looking to get quality reps in. And even if the outcome isn't what I want, I need to learn that process. And it's a totally different can of worms. And not only do I want to learn that process for myself, I also want to learn that process so I can go and teach it as well. The acquisition process is pretty similar to everything else that we do. The sales cycles are longer just because there's more money involved, there's more stakeholders involved. But everything is very different once you actually have the deal under contract. There's just a lot of hoops you got to jump through and red tape to go through and third parties to use to help get the deal done. So yeah, that's really my goal. This month, we're going to be bringing on a new intake manager. We had hired an intake manager in December, and they actually left us after 2 weeks, which is a bit of a bummer. First time that's actually ever happened. And so our intake manager, just for context, they prep the lead for our acquisition manager. So as you start getting more leads in your business, again, going back to that same concept of having roles that are very targeted, I want my acquisition manager just talking on the phones with sellers. I don't want them spending too much time prepping leads and doing due diligence. And so we're segmenting those roles, having intake managers do the prepping and comping, and they'll pass that off to our acquisition manager. So that's the hire that we're going to be making. We may be bringing on a second acquisition manager. It's TBD. We've been interviewing for it. I don't know if I want to add more cost to our business, but I think we could benefit from it. So we'll see about that. In terms of lifestyle, nothing that I necessarily want to change in like the physical sense. I'm very much in love with my life, and I like how things are going. But I think that on a psychological level, like I was talking about with the relative comparisons, I've lived my life and really spent the last 5 years in like a growth at all costs mindset. And so anytime there's a slight step back, I'm so attached to outcomes, and I'm so just full body, mind, body, spirit involved in this, that any step backwards, it feels so painful. And so I need to do a better job detaching from the outcomes, doing high quality work, and knowing that the rest will take care of itself. And whether you're religious or not, like I do believe that there's a plan at play that we can't fully see. And so just having a little more trust, right? I think I've operated out of a place of fear to some extent, and I'm trying to go more from a place of trust and faith, if you will. So that's really like the only change that I'm looking to make this year, and in particular, that's starting this month. And it's something I've been working on for the last few months, but I want to get better at it. So yeah, any questions on that? No? Cool.
No.
All right, Dominic, you got your goals ready for January?
Sorta. I mean, I think I'm at the point now where I'm really trying to figure out what tools are necessary as somebody's just starting out.
Yep.
I'm not trying to overspend, but I'm also, I'm kind of short on time too. I work full time. I'm a single parent. So I'm also kind of looking for things that can make this more doable. So just kind of weighing those things. I reached out to the rep for Data Tree. And so I'm trying to figure out like I don't really know what option to choose, because I can't really conceptualize in my mind yet, like what I'll need.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of figuring out like, okay, do I need the CRM at this point? Do I need Pat Live at this point if I'm working during the day and I can't take calls? But maybe I'm not even going to get calls right away. So maybe it's something I don't need yet,
Yeah.
So it's like, what do I need to start is what I'm trying to kind of figure out to get the ball rolling and say, okay, I'm going to do my first test mailer, but I've got to pick a market. Haven't even done that yet. I've been like researching, and that's kind of what I've been spending my days on. I kind of went through the modules and then I stopped because I've been watching some of them over and over again to try to like figure out, like picking out a market, like, okay, let me see exactly like what you're doing. And then I've got my other screen up and I'm trying to like do it with you. So yeah.
I think that's the best way to do it. So what I encourage is you want to implement as you go, right? And we have people that it takes them 3 months to finish the program. And I think that's ideal. Like there's no rush to get through it. It's like a overload of information, right? So you want to take it one step at a time and then implement simultaneously. One of the things that we're building out in the program this month, which is somewhat in the same vein, are essentially quizzes. And so they're not going to be like, hey, you have to get this done to move on to the next section, but it's going to help with retaining the information. And there'll also be milestones, right? So once you cross this threshold, now it's time to go select your market and then go and check this box once you've done it. And so I think it'll help people kind of pace themselves correctly. But yeah, you're spot on. You want to learn, implement as you go. There's a good question about tools. So we'll talk about that here. This is actually a really common question, and potentially it deserves a module within itself of what you need in like the first 90 days or so. And so you're right. Like you don't want to overload yourself on cost or tools before you need them. But there's 2 tools I say are pretty much non-negotiable from the jump. Because you also want to be committed, right? Like by spending money, it's like, okay, now my back's up against the wall. I'm going to make this happen. Like we've seen folks that get stuck in the analysis paralysis for months, just selecting a market. So spending a little money can be a good motivating factor, but to start, you're going to need Data Tree. That one's a non-negotiable. For the plan to start with, I would start with a $99 a month plan. Your cost for data is going to be a little higher. You'll be at 9 cents per record. I think with that plan, you get 1,200 free records a month. And so what you can do is use that for a quarter, right? And that's nice because your monthly hard cost of $99 is not a ton. Where if you jump up to the next plan, I think it's $500 a month. Now your cost of data is going to go down substantially, but you need a sample size to figure out if that's even going to save you money. And so what you want to do is stick with a $99 a month plan, use that for a quarter, then go back and look at, well, how much did I spend on data? And would the next plan save me money? One of the things that we are kind of cooking up in the background is and this is somewhat related, but still get data tree done. This is going to take a little while to put together, but there's a company that we can utilize to get free data, essentially free data. I think it's 20,000 a year, but we can have as many members on the account. And so what we're going to do is look to bring all the LEA members onto that account. There'll be a small monthly cost, but we get unlimited free data. And so at the end of the year, it'll save, like in my business, it would save us probably 20 grand, and same for a lot of our students. So that's an option as well. But to start, the $900 a month plan is perfect. I use that for like 2 years. And so I think that like if you're not crossing past 5,000 data points a month, you're probably fine on that plan for the most part. And then eventually you'd go up to the higher plan, because then it goes from 9 cents a record to 5 cents a record, which is pretty big. And I think on the $500 a month plan, I forget how many records they give you. It's like 3,000 or 4,000 free records a month. Now next, Follow-Up Boss is, you could wait a little bit if you wanted to, because really you want to start generating leads. And once you start generating leads, then Follow-Up Boss makes sense. And so what you could do to kind of bridge the gap is just use Google Sheets, start logging the leads in there. And then let's say you have consistent mail going out, you've got leads in there, you can get a Follow-Up Boss account, and then you can just upload that CSV in there and it'll populate all those leads into Follow-Up Boss. So you could wait a little bit for that. Follow-Up Boss is $69 a month. It's pretty darn affordable. And once you've sent 2 months worth out of mail and you're consistently mailing and you're not going to deviate from your mail cadence, Follow-Up Boss is a must. You'll just start drowning in leads. It's just so hard to kind of just to keep your head above water. Now, for busy individuals, the 2 biggest recommendations I have, obviously there's 3 different offer strategies that we use in this business. Blind offers are going to be your go-to. If you're busy and you've got other things going on, blind offers are really nice because you're going to get a smaller quantity of leads, but they're going to be more qualified. And so it's not going to just bog you down with leads. Like range offers, you'll get a lot more leads. Neutral letters, you'll get just a waterfall of leads on your head. It's just too much. So I'd stick with blind offers. Now, Pat Live, for folks that have other obligations, I would say is a must, but not yet. You want to start consistently generating leads. You also want to get your hands dirty and learn the process. But what you'll start to notice is things will slip through the cracks. You'll miss a few leads. You call them back late. You never get a hold of them. Or you talk to someone and you forget to log them in the CRM because you're driving or what have you. That's when you know you need Pat Live. And so some folks join and they get all the tools preemptively and they just hit the ground running. That's fine. But I would say you could probably data tree first campaign, get some leads in, put that in Google Sheets. Maybe a month later, get Follow-Up Boss, and then Pat Live 3 months in or so. And that's what we've seen as a standard. Usually it's about 90 days before someone gets Pat Live. Now, Pat Live, $299 a month. It's still not a huge cost. It'll actually make you money in the long run because no leads will get missed, but it'll also give you your sanity, right? One of the problems about being your own kind of acquisition manager and taking all those calls, it's super reactive. So you're working on a mailer, or you're working your job, and you get a call, and your brain has this kind of task switch. I think that's bad for productivity. So I would get it as soon as you can, but start getting leads in first. But data tree for certain, go $99 a month. And you might not even need to upgrade to the bigger plan because at that point we might have the data for everyone.
This is going to sound like super obvious and silly too, but something before Pat Live, and if you're busy and working and you're not around your phone to answer all the time, a badass voicemail, because although you're going to miss some stuff, but like make sure you ask them, like parcel all the information that you possibly can. The motivated sellers are going to leave their information, and they're, again, it's going to be the low hanging fruit that you're going to get, but you will get them. So the badass voicemail is literally like, I still earmuff Sumner. I'm using Pat Live for the last year. I literally have not, and I answer my phone like maybe half the time. So badass voicemail.
Yeah, and you can pull it off, right? Like you guys both did multiple 6 figures profit in your business with no Pat Live. The reality is though, you probably missed out on $50,000 to $200,000 worth of deals.
100%. And I'm signing up for it tomorrow for that reason. And I know I missed out a lot, but it's absolutely,
it's still doable without it though.
For sure. Yeah.
Then the thing to look at this too, and this is a bit of a mindset shift for sure, because those first 90 days you're going to have no income coming in. It's just a matter of fact, right? And what's going to happen is, that's why we say a $10,000 budget is really what's going to make sense. And that's overly cautious, to be honest. You could do it for substantially less, because your software stack could be as low as just $99 a month. And you got the cost of data. You might spend $2,000 a month and you're at $6,000 for those first 90 days. But yeah, you have to like do this front loading of capital with no outpour coming back in. And then what happens is it's like, boom, all of it just comes dumping in at once. One of the guys that we were talking about in the Discord today, his name's Preston. He hit the ground running, mailed 3 months. And then, wasn't getting a ton. And then it just all happened at once. You got 7 deals in like 2 weeks. And it's like, close to $70,000 in profit just from all of that. And so he invested probably $10,000 or $12,000 to get that outcome. And that feels uncomfortable at first because there's no immediate return from it. The other thing is like that, just the nature of direct mail is there's a latency. I always tell people, it's like we plant seeds today that will sow literally 90 to 120 days later. And that's a weird thing to go through. But faith, right? That's why the faith comes in, and just knowing that it will come full circle as long as you stay consistent with it. Now, the other thing on the topic of market selection. So I like the fact that you're spending time reviewing them, right? Like, I don't think there's not urgency just to pick a market and go immediately. You want to find something that's quality, and you want to find something that you deeply understand, because that will be a real value to you later. I know this is your first call, but on these calls, bring those markets that you're looking at. We'll go through those with you together. I can't guarantee outcomes, but I'll do my best to give feedback on like, hey, I think this is good, or I think this is bad, and this is why. Not only is it educational, it'll give you more confidence, right? So like we talked about in the program with the Market Mondays, just having a list where you're aggregating all that information, kind of like a living, breathing document, and you can bring those to these calls and we'll go through them with you.
Okay, awesome. And this is kind of a weird question too. I'm wondering, when you send out your mailers, is your home address on them, or do you have like a virtual PO box? Or
Yeah.
like, I'm like, I don't know if I want my home address on these.
I know.
I had someone threaten to kick my ass one time.
Yes, I had someone actually threaten to murder me. And yes, I have used my home address for years. Not ideal. You can go get a PO box at UPS and just use that. Yeah, I don't. Okay. It is weird, and I have had a few late night thoughts where I'm like, God, this is kind of bizarre. Obviously, actually, no. There was one situation. I kid you guys not. This was about 8 months ago. Someone showed up at my house. It was freaky. They were nice, but I'm like, dude, what?
Who does that?
Yeah, do not show up at my house. And yeah, I mean, I think that's very unlikely that obviously anything bad would happen, but if it's going to help you sleep easier at night, you can get a PO box for less than $50 and just use that.
Yeah, and
I think a lot of people think it's a business, but it's too. Like,
they do.
Think
most people don't even look into it, right? They just assume. But I did have someone show up, which was really weird.
So when you make your calls, is it like, do you have like a separate number, or do you just like use your own?
Yeah. So the way it works, so on our letter, we have Pat Live's number. So they call Pat Live, then Pat Live fills out a form that gets put into our CRM. One of the reasons we're such big proponents of Follow Up Boss is because you can call out a Follow Up Boss. Okay. That'll give you a number that's in the same area code as you. It'll get like routed to your phone. So you could take those calls on your phone, but they won't see your number, which I want to keep that separate. Believe it or not, I spent 2 years using my personal cell phone. I still get texts and calls to this day. Mm-hmm. It's just annoying. So I would definitely recommend not using your phone. That's the beauty of Follow Up Boss, is you can do that. If you don't want to invest in Follow Up Boss from the jump, you can get a Google Voice number. It's like $7 a month or something like that. So you could do that as well.
Open phone.
Yeah, I use Open Phone. It's $13 a month.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you pick like an area code that's local to the market you're?
Yeah, so this is a much debated topic in this business. Do I think it's valuable to do that? I think you do get a slight benefit. The logistical nightmare of doing that for the dozens and dozens of markets we work in is just too difficult. So I keep it true to where our business is located. I think that looks a little more legitimate. Like if you have an area code that's in a different town, like for example, my area code's from my hometown for my personal phone, but we're in San Diego. So I have a San Diego area code. It's a little more aligned. I think people will kind of pick out those weird, just things that aren't in sync, right? So that stuff can throw a red flag. I do think it's valuable to have numbers that are aligned with the markets you're working in. that's just hard to pull off. I know some guys in this business that just work in 3 different markets. And so you just have 3 different numbers, and that works as well. In our texting platform in Launch Control, you can actually set your area code for the markets you're working in. But in terms of our mailers, we don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I would recommend, I mean, from the jump, I would recommend for certain not putting your personal number on there. And if it makes you feel better, I would get a PO box. You can also use, you guys might use this, Chris. I don't know. You seem like someone that would use it. It's like the digital PO boxes where someone will actually go and read the mail, scan it, and send it to you. And that way you don't have to go to the PO box yourself.
I've been looking at that, like
Yeah.
a virtual mail. Yeah.
You don't use that? You don't use that, Chris?
No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
What does
it's a
that
little
matter?
more costly than a regular PO box, but still not super substantial. And what's nice is like if you're someone that travels a lot, so for this year is going to be like my big nomadic year, right? My plan is to travel most of the year. And so we get purchase agreements and things sent to us. And if I'm not there, who's going to read it? Well, that's a nice way to still get that stuff sent to your email. Nowadays we do a lot of range offers, so it's less relevant to us. But if you're doing blind offers, I don't know, maybe a third of the deals you do will be signed purchase agreements to get mailed back. Is that true for you guys roughly?
Probably a little bit more than that.
A bit more, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so something to look into. What about additional questions? Anything else coming up in the process for you thus far?
I think that's my main thing. Like I said, I'm trying not to go too far ahead. I kind of did a little bit, and I'm like, let me just stop and get this under control. So
yeah. What I would do is, so on our call on Wednesday, if you can make it, if not next Monday, come bring some of those markets to the call. We'll go through them together. I think that'll be helpful. In the interim, I would recommend getting Data Tree. Data Tree is nice too, because we don't do all of our market selection in there, but we can get some more insights that you can't find on other platforms, which is helpful. And then sooner rather than later, you want to pull data, because the data portion of pricing and getting your mailer together, especially for your first one, could take you 2 weeks. And so you want to get on that sooner rather than later. And the truth is, like, a lot of our mailers in this business, and this trips up a lot of new students, is that, okay, we're going to do 20,000 mailers this month. That's probably comprised of, I don't know, 30 to 40 individual campaigns. A lot of times when we get this data and we kind of filter it and break it down, you might be left with 500 to 1,000 records. So what I would recommend is you don't have to pick the perfect market. You could do a few different markets and then split test them. And it might only be a few hundred records for each one. And so that's helpful when you're getting your first few campaigns out. I would much rather you be diversified and do a little bit in a lot of different markets than one really big campaign for your first market. And what I would recommend doing as well, I would set a mail goal for this month. And we can kind of build that out as you grow in your business. But for this month, and you can tell me what feels comfortable. I always like to set goals that are attainable, but do make you feel a little uncomfortable. I would say somewhere in the realm of like 3,000 to 5,000 mailers would be awesome. If you could hit that, 5,000 would be like slam dunk. 3,000 would be pretty darn good. But that will probably take you most of the month to put together, just because there's a learning curve for putting those mailers together. Same thing. If you're working on a mailer, you can bring that to one of the calls, or you can always pop questions into the Discord. But I would start working on that sooner rather than later, just so you can try to hit a mail goal for this month. Just like the nature of the deals that we're going after takes a little more mail to get those kinds of deals. Like we said, about 2,000 letters per deal. And you got to assume for your first few campaigns, it's a learning curve. So you might get super lucky and just kill it, or they might be okay and not like phenomenal. That's just the price of doing business and getting good at it. But you want to get that mail out sooner rather than later. It's like really the way I look at this. It's much like the Subdivide stuff, right? I need to get a Subdivide under my belt this quarter, not to make a lot of money, but to get the momentum and learn the process. It's the same thing for folks that are starting out. Your first few deals, let's not even focus on making a boatload of money. Let's focus on getting that momentum. And once you have the wind in your sails, you're smooth sailing. And so I think as quickly as we can get that first deal done, it's going to just serve you in the long run to kind of keep the momentum going.
Okay. Is there like a certain, I'm sorry, is there like a certain sample size that makes a viable test mailer?
Yeah,
like
for sure. So in our business, I mean, I sent out a mailer today that was 88 records. Now, I think for a test mailer, that's too small. This is a remailing to a market that I've mailed like 5 or 6 times. So I'm intimately familiar with it. What I like to see for a test mailer, 500 to 1,000 records. It's going to be pretty typical. I think that if you're under 500 records, it's just not enough of a sample size to get a real green light from it. And so 500 to 1,000 is going to be a pretty safe bet. 500 pieces of mail is going to cost you a little over $250. So it's a pretty small bet that you're making, but that'll give you enough valuable data to say yes or no. And really, like, one of the things with test mailers is that if you're going through the market selection process correctly, you're not going to pick markets that are just flat out duds. Really, what the test mailer is going to give you a lot of good information on is your pricing. That's what's most likely to be messed up on your first few campaigns. And so if I do a 500 piece test mailer and I get nothing back, it's probably not because the market's off. Probably my pricing was off. And then so we'll go do it again until we get it right. I've had some campaigns this year that we've literally sent out, probably 4 or 5 times before I finally got the pricing right. I think more times than not, I'm usually a little too low. And so I've got to kind of figure out what's that sweet spot. We're always trying to balance good deal with high response rate. And so you're always finding that kind of sweet spot in between.
So are you sending mail out to the same list, like to the same people?
Yeah. So you're not necessarily going to do this from the jump, right? You're going to build up what we call like a database, right? You'll build up, let's say you sent out 20 mailers. You'll say, okay, these 3 mailers were crazy good. Like, those markets crushed. And if you've done a deal there, even better. Once we've done a deal in a market, we've got insight that no one else has, right? Like, that's better than any data you can find on Redfin or Zillow, because you really know that market now. And so the kind of the secret in this business is that, like, it's not about finding new markets, it's about doubling down on the markets that you've worked in. And there's a ton of ancillary benefits to that. 1, you know the pricing really well. 2, you already own the data, so you're not paying for it again. And 3, if you look at like the case studies that have been done on direct mail, they say it's about 7 touches through direct mail before you get the highest response rate. And so there's actually a value to continuing to showing up. The crazy thing is most land investors don't do this. They're always on this treadmill of finding new markets. That's really taxing. So once you have a big enough sample size, for some people that'll happen in a few months. For some people it takes a year, and then they'll look back and they'll say, oh, these were the obvious winners. And so in our business nowadays, I would say, outside of the subdivide stuff has kind of skewed these numbers because we're going after markets we never worked in. I'm trying a lot of things to see what kind of sticks. But for our regular deals that we do, I mean, probably 3/4 of our mailings are remailings. It makes up a huge component of it. And you're taking a lot of the guesswork out of the business at that point. And it's crazy. Like, we'll have campaigns where I'm like, why didn't you show up on the first one? Like, someone will call us that we've mailed twice and now they're ready to sell. And the crazy thing about direct mail is, 1, it's a timing thing. And that shows up in 2 different ways. 1, a lot of direct mail actually never gets opened. It's not so much that people aren't receptive to selling. It got thrown in the trash. They missed it. It didn't get delivered. That happens. That's why we don't send mail during the holidays, because people are getting a bunch of other mail sent to them. So we just kind of get lost in the noise. Or they got our letter and they just literally weren't ready at that time. But showing up again, you've already instilled that thought the first time around, and I show up a quarter later. You know what? I'm actually a little more warm to the idea. So the general rule of thumb of what we recommend is, if you are going to remail, it's about once a quarter. Now, I break that rule sometimes, but once a quarter is a safe bet.
Okay.
Yeah. Chris, Mike, any additional input, feedback, suggestions, motivation you could give for Dominique on, just getting started?
Yeah, I got one thing before I got to go, because I do have to run
Yeah.
in a sec. Just keep on going. Just don't stop. This business is the most ridiculous, life-changing thing in the world. Like, it sounds fake. All these like numbers, it sounds absurd. And if you just keep on going, Sumner is a fucking genius. This guy knows what he's doing. And this process, it may seem impossible and huge when you first start. Like, how are you going to tackle all of it? Just put one foot in front of the other, and just act like you're an expert when someone calls you, and eventually you'll figure it out. And it's the craziest business, because you can fail 100 times, and every time you fail, you're still making money, which is absolutely bonkers. So, I think you're going to love it. You're going to crush it. Just keep on putting one foot in front of the other. You'll be all right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Bye, guys.
See you, Chris. Good talking to you,
Bye.
man. Take it easy. Mike, what are your words of encouragement here.
Yeah, mine are probably similar to that. Just know, like when you're mailing today, I was talking with Sumner about this earlier today. It can get expensive, right? 3,000 pieces of mail is $1,500. It's not cheap, but just know that it will pay you in 90 to 120 days. So don't get discouraged in 30 to 60, maybe even 90 days if you don't see the returns right away, but it will. So just know that the mail that you're putting in today, you're not going to see it for probably 60 days, and don't get discouraged when you don't. But kind of like Chris was saying, just keep mailing, and it comes around. It always does.
Because that's what I was wondering. I'm like, well, since I'm new, should I start on like small deals? But then I'm like, if I'm going to spend all this money on marketing, like I don't want to like.
Sumner and I were talking about this earlier today. I think starting on small deals probably does more harm than good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people I don't know, small deals seem safe. It seems doable. The reality is we've already got the funding secured for you guys. Like you get a good deal, you're going to get that deal funded, as long as actually a good deal. And so don't worry about that. What we're looking at here is ROAS, right? We want to maximize our return from the spend on direct mail. Small deals just won't do that for us. But the other thing is if you're a busy individual, you got a family to run, you're working a W-2 job, you don't want to sell 10 deals that net you $500 a piece. Let's do one deal that makes you 25 grand. Way more meaningful, but also way more doable when you have other obligations. The other bizarre thing about the kind of niche that we've carved out in the land space is that it's actually less competitive. I don't know why. I don't know if it's limiting beliefs. I don't know what it is, but we are for the most part, the only people going after these larger deals. Not to say that the land space is even competitive. It's really not. But on the small deal arena, there's more people that are just getting started that feel like it's the safe route to go. All the people that have gone through the program that have started small deals and then gone up, the verdict every time is, boy, that was a waste of time. And you will make money and it will be profitable. It's just, you can circumvent that. You got everything you need. You've got the group, you've got assistance. Let's just get you plugged in and start doing the bigger stuff from the jump. Now, would I recommend going and doing a $5 million property first time around? Probably not. Although we had a guy in the group, his first deal was a $500,000 property. It's like, okay, that it'll work. And if you've got the funding for it, it's like, why not? So yeah, I think everyone said it beautifully, right? It's just one foot in front of the other. We get rewarded from being consistent, right? We just keep on showing up. We have to understand it's just weird dichotomy of land investing is a skill. We've got to develop that skill. And once we develop that skill, now we get to turn it into a business. And that's where you get the opportunity to leave your job or have more free time. And that's what we're after, right? Money is cool, but it's the time freedom that's meaningful. And I think we would all take more free time than just more money flat out. But we first have to get really good at that skill. And so it just takes time, but I know you can do it. You're plugged in the right spot, and we're all here to help any way we can.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get started. I'm obsessed. I seriously, I feel like this is all I'm doing every minute of free time I have. So
that's how we know you're going to be successful. It's the folks that get obsessed. Some people from the jump, they get the bug. And I haven't lost that bug. I got it, and it's that's all I think about, right? And so when you get obsessed, you've already won. It's just a matter of time for it to come to fruition. So, well, that was a cool call. I'm actually glad that it was small and intimate. I had fun chatting with you guys. And Dominique, if you can make the call on Wednesday, that would be great. If you want to go over those markets, if not, we could do it on the call next Monday. But great talking to y'all. We're gonna have a phenomenal year together. So let's start kicking butt and having fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, Summer.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
See ya.